Welcome back to the InvestTalk Classroom, where today we're going to have a good personal finance topic, which is really something that I think both you and I have been asked several times, and that's how should I prioritize my savings?
Yes, and I really like the 40-30-20-10 rule, and this is a good personal finance rule that will allow you to focus on keeping your spending habits in check. Now, this is about 40% of your budget should go towards your important needs, which would be
It's called your
rent,
fixed costs, your
costs.
housing, your transportation, stuff
your
like
food.
Your food. Food's
Yes.
important as well. That's fixed.
Exactly. And then 30% should go towards discretionary spending, going out to eat, buying clothes, things that you don't necessarily have to do, but you probably are going to need to do if you want to be happy in some
The
capacity.
things that make life worth living.
Exactly. There you go. So traveling, things like that. Okay. Then the 20% is the savings. This is your traditional saving towards retirement. So think of saving in your 401k or your IRA, et cetera. And then the 10% would be more longer term priorities, like maybe you want to buy a house, maybe you want to buy a new car, whatever that is, kind of miscellaneous savings. So you should be targeting roughly 30% of your budget towards savings. So then the next question would be, how do you prioritize those savings, like you said? And the first thing would be your emergency fund. So you typically want 3 to 6 months of your expenses and making sure that that's liquid. It's in some sort of high yield savings account, something that you can have access to very easily and isn't going to lose any money.
So that's an important point there, because I think when people ask questions about personal finance, they're looking for some one size fits all solution. But what you just mentioned, and even in the 40-30-20-10 rule, is that the 20 and the 10 is essentially the same thing. It's savings, right? But the 20 and the 10 is split up into savings over different horizons. So you mentioned the emergency fund, your 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's for your immediate needs. Should you lose a job? Should you be incapacitated in some way, break your leg, something that wouldn't allow you to have that normal income that you would see. That's saving, but that's different from your 401k and IRA saving. So that's over a longer investment horizon. You're saving for your future. So I think an important tip for everybody is bucketing where you need to save along the lines of what your goals are.
Yeah. And everyone has different goals. And so there are different ways to tackle the savings mechanisms. And we talked about the emergency funds, but the second one would be your 401k match. Most companies match some percentage of their 401k contributions for employees. And when you're not getting that, when you're not taking advantage of that, that is an easy 50 to 100% return on your money guaranteed, which you're never going to find anywhere else. And so once you have built up that emergency fund and you feel comfortable that there won't be an issue if you break your leg, for example, of you paying your bills, then making sure you get to that full 401k match. And then it's paying down debt. Most people have some sort of credit card debt. We've talked about the credit card debt reaching over $1 trillion in this country recently, which just is a round number at the end of the day. But that credit card debt is typically you're paying 18, 20, sometimes up to 30%. And so making sure you're paying down any of those high interest debts that you might have, say 10% or higher, is the next priority.
Yeah, and don't forget, there's also other types of vehicles for savings for various reasons, right? You have your HSAs. I had an HSA at my old employer. It was great. They would throw in money every month, and at the end of the year, I wouldn't go to the doctor except for the time that I had to get a CT scan for skiing, but I'm injury prone. But you got your HSAs, you take
a lot of risk.
I take a lot of risk.
Not on the investment side.
I specifically take a lot of risk.
Yes.
But then you have your FSAs, you have your flexible spending accounts, which you can't have with an HSA, but it's another way to save money and invest that money and reimburse yourself. You have your 529 plans if you have kids. I don't have any kids. I have 3 cats now. I don't think I'll be sending any of them to college, so I don't really need a 529 plan. For some people, that is an excellent way to save for your children's college.
Yeah. And there's also your traditional retirement accounts. So we talked about the 401k match, but you can contribute to a 401k and an IRA as well. So making sure those are contributed to on top of that. And then after you've maxed out those retirement contributions, then it's about, I think, paying down moderate debt levels. So if you have a car loan that's 7-8%, that doesn't seem very high, But remember, any time you're paying down debt, you're guaranteeing yourself that return that you would otherwise be accruing on that particular debt. And so making sure you're paying down that debt as much as possible, it would probably be that next step after maxing out your 401ks, your IRAs, your HSAs, et cetera, and 529s potentially. And then it's about taxable brokerage. Any overflow, I would put in a taxable brokerage account. And I think they're underrated. Taxable brokerage accounts are underrated because you can kind of pick and choose when you take any particular tax hits. They can help you in a particular year if you want to have a write-off and take some losses, or you wait until it's long-term capital gains, and then you can take a long-term capital gains hit potentially at some point in a year that maybe you don't make a lot of money or something. So, I think a taxable brokerage account is still a great way, even though it's not doesn't have this tax shelter to it. I think there are some tax mechanisms that you can use with a taxable brokerage account, and makes it a good place to save money.
Overall, I would say that from a personal finance perspective, it's important to know what your goals are and what tools you have.
And these are your tools, and these are priorities to have. So this has been an overview of how to prioritize your savings and another edition of the InvestTalk Classroom series. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.